Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the conclusion of our read-aloud of Bram Stoker's Dracula. We are reading the final chapter to the conclusion of the novel today, but I wanted to start off with a couple of things first. First, tell you how much fun this was. I know that it won't be visible in a playlist, but I've taken long breaks from this. But I have enjoyed it so much. It has been so immensely fun, not only to read this book out loud that I love so much, but also how okay the rest of you are with the way I'm doing it, with the endless editorial interruptions of one kind or another. You're not only okay with it, a number of you have emailed to say that you prefer it, that it is actually better than a standard audiobook. I know that most of you don't feel that way, but a lot of you do, and that's been wonderful to hear. That is absolutely wonderful to hear. So that's thing number one. And then thing number two is addressed to a particular group of people who've been emailing me, and that is students, especially young students. I've had a number of your emails. I've got them all. I've responded as often as I could. But I want to make this here for everybody who hasn't thought to write. And that is to tell you that when it comes to writing a paper about this novel, you can listen to my reading of it, certainly, but I am gapping words. I am missing words. I am not a professional audiobook reader, so you certainly can't use a transcript of what I'm reading of the text of the novel. You certainly can't do that. You need to refer to the text of the novel when you are referring to the text of the novel. But more than that, you also can't use me as a source. It's true that I've read this more times than I can count, and it's true that I am a professional book critic, but that doesn't make me a source. A comment that I make offhand in a video when I'm reading this novel does not count as the source of any point you want to make in your paper. Now, I know that the reason why so many of you are either asking or telling me that you want that to be true is that you have not been taught. It's not your fault. You haven't been taught what proper sourcing is, what proper term paper or book report is. You haven't been taught what that is. Probably because a lot of your teachers don't know, because they weren't taught. But nevertheless, trust me when I tell you, you can't use me as a source. The closest that you could come, maybe, depending on how elastic your teacher is, would be to contact me via email and ask me for an actual quote about some aspect of the novel. But a comment made in passing while I'm reading it out loud does not cut the mustard. I've told a number of you that individually. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. So we are going back to the Penguin speculative fiction line, this hardcover that has served us so well for this reading. And we are going to read the final chapter, which, thanks to a few things, it's important to understand here that Bram Stoker is an old hand in the theater world and was steeped to his eyeballs in pulp fiction. So he knows how to end a book, and that is in a thrilling way. You want to leave the audience, have the audience leave the theater agog. And so he has thrown any number of things in our past. Remember, the very first plan that our heroes had was to meet Dracula's ship at Varna a week before, to get to Varna a week before him, lay all your plans, get all the paperwork ready with the city officials so that you can just walk on board at dawn, go down into the hold, open the box, and kill him without any questions at all. That was their plan, and they had it down pat, and Dracula fooled them. Ended up going somewhere else, costing them a huge amount of time. Now, he's had setbacks too, but he has done enough to their settled plans to make this final chapter a breakneck race, which is just what you want it to be. So this is chapter 27 of Dracula, and we start with Mina Harker's journal on the 1st of November. All day long we have traveled, and at a good speed. The horses seem to know that they are being kindly treated, for they go willingly at their full stage at best speed. We have now had so many changes and find the same thing so constantly that we are encouraged to think that the journey will be an easy one. Dr. Van Helsing is laconic. He tells the farmers that he is hurrying to Biestert's and pays them well to make the exchange of horses. We get hot soup and coffee or tea, and off we go. It is a lovely country, full of beauties of all imaginable kinds, and the people are brave and strong and simple, and seem full of nice qualities. They are very, very superstitious. In the first house where we stopped, when the women had served us saw the scar on my forehead, she crossed herself and put out 2 fingers toward me to keep off the evil eye. Just mind-boggling here that Mina does not put a scarf around her forehead. Just why on earth wouldn't you do that? if you have a burning red impression of the Holy Eucharist on your forehead, why would you walk around that way? I mean, in City on the Edge of Forever, Spock puts a knit cap over his ears. Anyway, ever since then, I've taken care not to take off my hat or veil, and so have escaped their suspicions. We are traveling fast, and as we have had no driver with us to carry tales, we go ahead of scandal. But I dare say that fear of the evil eye will follow hard behind us all the way. The professor seems tireless. All day he would not take any rest, though it made me sleep for a long spell. At sunset time he hypnotized me, and he says that I answered as usual, darkness, lapping water, and creaking wood. So our enemy is still on the river. I am afraid to think of Jonathan, but somehow I have now no fear for him or for myself. I write this while we wait in a farmhouse for the horses to be got ready. Dr. Van Helsing is sleeping. Poor dear, he looks very tired and old and gray, but his mouth is set as firmly as a conqueror's. Even in his sleep, he is instinct with resolution. When we have well started, I must make him rest whilst I drive. I shall tell him that we have days before us, and he must not break down when most of all his strength will be needed. All is ready. We are off shortly. Then November 2nd in the morning. I was successful, and we took turns driving all night. Now the day is on us, bright though cold. There is a strange heaviness in the air. I say heaviness for want of a better word. I meant that it oppresses us both. It is very cold, and only our warm furs keep us comfortable. At dawn, Van Helsing hypnotized me. He says I answered darkness, creaking wood, and roaring water. So the river is changing as they ascend. I do hope that my darling will not run any chance of danger, more than need be, but we are in God's hands. So she's getting direct sensory inputs of what the Count is feeling, and she noticed through him a change in the tempo of the river. Then the 2nd of November at night. All day long driving. The country gets wilder as we go, and the great spurs of the Carpathians, which at Veresti seem so far from us, are now, and so low on the horizon, now seem to gather round us and tower in front. We both seem in good spirits. I think we make an effort to cheer each other, and in doing so we cheer ourselves. Dr. Van Helsing says that by morning we shall reach the Borgo Pass. The houses are very few here now, and the professor says that the last horses we get will have to go on with us, as we may not be able to change. He got 2 in addition to the 2 we changed, so that now we have a rude 4 in hand. The dear horses are patient and good, and they give us no trouble. We are not wearied with other travelers, so even I can drive. We shall get to the pass in daylight. We do not want to arrive before, so we take it easy and have each a long rest in turn. Oh, what will tomorrow bring us? We go to seek a place where my poor darling suffered so much. God grant that we may be guided aright, and that he will deign to watch over my husband and those dear to us both who are in such deadly peril. As for me, I am not worthy in his sight. Alas, I am unclean to his eyes, and shall be until he may deign to let me stand forth in his sight as one of those who has not incurred his wrath. How have you incurred his wrath? Van Helsing's the one who pressed the wafer to your forehead, for Pete's sake. And you had no choice in Dracula and what he did to you. But anyway, we move on from her diary to another memorandum, only this one is by Van Helsing, not by her. And this is for the 4th of November. This to my old and true friend John Seward, M.D. of Purfleet, London, in case I may not see him. It may explain. It is morning, and I write by a fire which all night I have kept alive, Madam Mina aiding me. It is cold, cold, so cold, that the grey heavy sky is full of snow, which when it falls will settle for all winter, as the ground is hardening to receive it. It seems to have affected Madam Mina. She has been so heavy of head all day that she was not like herself. She sleeps and sleeps and sleeps. She who is usual so alert have done literally nothing all the day. She even have lost her appetite. She make no entry in her little diary, she who wrote so faithful at every pause. Something whisper to her that all is not well. However, tonight she is more vif, lively, is what he means. Her long sleep all day may have refresh and restore her, and for now she is all sweet and bright as ever. At sunset I tried to hypnotize her, but alas, with no effect. The power has grown less and less with each day, and tonight it failed me altogether. Well, God's will be done, whatever it may be, and whithersoever it may lead. Now to the historical, for as Madam Mina write not in her stenography, I must, in my cumbrous old fashion, so that each day of us may not go unrecorded. We got to the Borgo Pass just after sunrise yesterday morning. When I saw the signs of the dawn, I got ready by the hypnotism. We stopped our carriage and got down so that there might be no disturbance. I made a couch with furs, and Madam Mina, lying down, yielded herself as usual, but more slow and more short time than ever, to the hypnotic sleep. As before came the answer, darkness and the swirling of water. Then she woke, bright and radiant, and we go on our way and soon reach the pass. At this time and place she become of all fire with zeal. Some new guiding power be in her manifested, for she point to the road and say, "This is the way." "How you know it?" I ask. "Of course I know it," she answer, and with a pause add, "Have not my Jonathan travel and wrote of his travel?" No, Dr. Van Helsing. She doesn't speak in stupid foreign pidgin English. She didn't say, have not my Jonathan travel and wrote of his travel. She said, hasn't my Jonathan traveled here and written of it? At first I think somewhat strange, but soon I see that there be only one such by-road. It is used but little, and very different from the coach road from Bukovina to Bistritz, which is more wide and hard and made of use. So we came down this road, where we meet the other ways. Not always were we sure that they were roads at all, for they be neglect, and light snow have fallen. The horses know, and they only. I give rein to them, and they go on so patient. By and by we find all the things which Jonathan have noted in that wonderful diary of him. Then we go on for long, long hours, and at first I tell Madam Mina to sleep. She try, and she succeed. She sleep all the time, till at last I feel myself too suspicious grow, and attempt to wake her. But she sleep on, and I may not wake her though I try. I do not wish to try too hard, lest I harm her, for I know she will have suffer much, and sleep at times be all in all to her. I think I drowse myself, for all of a sudden I feel guilt, as though I have done something. I find myself bolt up, with the rein in hand, and with the goat horses go along, jog, just as ever. I look down and find Madam Mina still asleep. It is now not far off till sunset time, and over the snow the light of the sun flow in big yellow flood, so that we throw great long shadows on where the mountain rise so steep. For we are going up, and all is, so wild and rocky, as though it were the end of the world. Then I arouse Madam Mina. This time she wake with not much trouble, and then I try to put her to hypnotic sleep. But she sleep not, being as though I were not. Still I try and try, till all at once I find her and myself in dark, so I look round and find that the sun have gone down. Madam Mina laugh, and I turn and look at her. She is now quite awake, and looks so well I never saw her since that night at Carfax when we first entered the Count's house. I am amazed. No, you foreign loon, you're amazed, with a D. I am amazed, and not at ease then, but she is so bright and tender and thoughtful for me that I forget all fear. I light a fire, for we have brought supply of wood with us, and she prepare food, while I undo the horses and set them tethered to shelter to feed. Then when I return to the fire, she gave me my supper ready. I go to help her, but she smile and tell me that she will have eat already, that she is so hungry that she will not wait. I like it not, and have grave doubts, but I fear to affright her, so I am silent of it. She helped me, and I eat alone, and when we wrap in fur and lie beside the fire, I tell her to sleep while I watch. But presently I forget all watching, and when sudden remember that I watch, I find her lying quiet, but awake, looking at me with so bright eyes. Notice they're now in the Borgo Pass. And what is she saying? Exactly what Dracula said to Jonathan Harker all that time ago. That I won't eat. I've eaten already. You eat, and I'll watch. Once, twice more the same occur, and I get much sleep till before morning. When I wake, I try to hypnotize her, but alas, though she shut her eyes obedient, she may not sleep. The sun rise up, and then sleep come to her too late, but so heavy that she will not wake. I have to lift her up and place her sleeping in the carriage when I have harnessed the horses and made all ready. Madam still asleep, and sleep. She look in her sleep more healthy and more redder than before, and I like it not. I am afraid. I am afraid of all things, even to think, but I must go on my way. The stake we play for is life and death, and more than these, and we must not flinch. He's worried that she's turning, when he has no help, when he's just with her. Then we have, he continues with his memorandum for the November 5th, the next day in the morning. Let me be accurate in everything, for though you and I have seen some strange things together, you may at first think that I, Van Helsing, am mad. But the many horrors and the so long strain on nerves has at last turned my brain. All yesterday we travel, ever getting closer to the mountains and moving into a more and more wild and desert land. There are great frowning precipices and much falling water, and nature seemed to have held something of carnival. Madam Mina still sleep, though I did have hunger and appeased it. I could not waken her, even for food. I began to fear that the fatal spell of the place was upon her, tainted as she was with that vampire baptism. Well, I said to myself, if it be that she sleep all day, it shall also be that I do not sleep at night. As we travel on the rough road, for a road of the ancient and imperfect kind there was, I held down my head and slept. Again I waked with a sense of guilt and of time past, and found Madam Mina still sleeping, and the sun low down. But all was indeed changed. The frowning mountains seemed further away, and we were near the top of a steep rising hill, on a summit of which was still such a castle as Jonathan tell of in his diary. At once I exulted and feared, for now, for good or ill, the end was near. I woke Madam Mina, and again tried to hypnotize her, but alas, unavailing till too late. Then, ere the great dark came upon us, for even after down sun, that's sundown, you mean, you foreign loon. No one anywhere calls it down sun. It's sundown. For even after down sun, the heavens reflected gone sun on the snow, and all was for a time in great twilight. Ding! I took out the horses and fed them in what shelter I could. Then I make a fire, and near it I make Madam Mina, now awake and more charming than ever, sit comfortable amid her rugs. I got food ready, but she would not eat, simply saying that she had not hunger. I did not press her, knowing her unavailingness. But myself ate, for I must needs now be strong for all. Then, with the fear on me of what might be, I drew a ring so big for her comfort, round where Madam Mina sat, and over the ring I passed some of the wafer. That is the sacred Eucharist, but the undead cannot stand. And I broke it fine, so that all were well guarded. She sat still all the time, so still as one dead, and she grew whiter and ever whiter till the snow was not more pale. And no word, she said. But when I drew near, she clung to me, and I could know the poor soul shook from her head to her feet with a tremor that was a pain to feel. I said to her presently, when she had grown more quiet, "Will you not come over to the fire? For I wish to make the test of what she would." She rose obedient, but when she then made a step, she stopped and stood as one stricken. "Why not go in?" I asked. She shook her head, and coming back, sat down in her place. Then, looking at me with open eyes, as one waked from sleep, she said simply, "I cannot," and remained silent. I rejoiced, for I knew that what she could not, none of those we dreaded could. Though there might be danger to her body, yet her soul was safe. In other words, he's testing whether or not his supernatural barrier works on Mina, and she can't pass it. So he is safe. And you might be wondering, since her telepathic ability, her telepathic connection with the Count, tells them both that he is still on the river, you might wonder why he's taking these precautions. And if you do, it's because you've forgotten what Bram Stoker has remembered. Dracula's 3 wives live in the castle and are every bit as dangerous as he is. Presently the horses began to scream and tore at their tethers till I came to them and quieted them. When they did feel my hands on them, they whinnied low as in joy, and licked at my hands, and were quiet for a time. Many times through the night did I come to them, till it arrived to the cold hour when all nature is at its lowest. Every time my comings was with quiet of them. In the cold hour the fire began to die, and I was about stepping forth to replenish it, for now the snow came in flying sweeps and with a chill mist. Even in the dark there was a light of some kind, as there ever is over the snow, and it seems as though the snow flurries and the wreaths of mist took the shape of women with trailing garments. All was in dead, grim silence, and only that the horses whinnied and cowered, as if in terror of the worst. I began to fear horrible fears. But then came to me the sense of safety in that ring wherein I stood. I began, too, to think of that in my imaginings were of the night, and the gloom, and the unrest that I have gone through, and all the terrible anxiety. It was as though my memories of all Jonathan's hard experience were befooling me, for the snowflakes and the mist began to wheel and circle round, till I could get as though a shadowy glimpse of those women that would have kissed him. And then the horses cowered, and lower, and moaned in terror as men do in pain. Even the madness of fright was not on them, so that they could break away. I feared for my dear Madam Mina when these weird figures drew near and circled round. I looked at her, but she sat calm and smiled at me. When I would have stepped to the fire to replenish it, she caught me and held me back, and whispered, like a voice that one hears in a dream, so low it was, "No, no, do not go without. Here you are safe." I turned to her, and looking her in the eyes, said, "But you, it is for you that I fear." Whereat she laughed, a laugh low and unreal, and said, "Fear for me? Why fear for me? None safer in the world from them than I am." And as I was wondering at the meaning of her words, a puff of wind made the flame leap up, and I see the red scar on her forehead. Then, alas, I knew. Did I not? I would soon have learned, for the wheeling figures of mist and snow came closer, but keeping ever without the holy circle. Then they began to materialize, till, if God have not taken away my reason, for I saw it through my own eyes, there were before me in the actual flesh the same 3 women that Jonathan saw in the room, when they would have kissed his throat. I knew the swaying round forms, the bright hard eyes and the white teeth, the ruddy color and the voluptuous lips. They smiled ever at poor dear Madame Mina, and their laugh came through the silence of the night. They twined their arms and pointed to her, and said in those so sweet, tingling tones that Jonathan said were of intolerable sweetness of the water glasses, "Come, sister, come to us. Come, come." In fear, I turned to my poor Madame Mina, and my heart with gladness leapt like flame, for oh, the terror in her sweet eyes, the repulsion, the horror, told a story to my heart that was all of hope. God be thanked that she was not, as yet, of them. I seized some of the firewood which was by me, and holding out some of the wafer, advanced on them toward the fire. They drew back before me, and laughed their low, horrid laugh. I fed the fire, and feared them not, for I knew that we were safe within our protections. They could not approach me, whilst so armed, nor Madame Mina, while she remained within the ring, which she could not leave no more than they could enter. The horses had ceased to moan, and lay still on the ground. The snow fell on them softly, and they grew whiter. I knew that there was for the poor beasts no more of terror. Did the wives kill the horses, or did they just die of fright? And so we remained till the red of the dawn began to fall through the snow gloom. I was desolate and afraid, and full of woe and terror, but when that beautiful sun began to climb the horizon, life was to me again. At the first coming of the dawn, the horrid figures melted into the whirling mists and snow, and the wreaths of transparent gloom moved away towards the castle and were lost. Instinctively, with the dawn coming, I turned to Madame Mina, intending to hypnotize her, but she lay in a deep and sudden sleep, from which I could not wake her. I tried to hypnotize her through sleep, but she made no response, none at all. And the day broke. I fear yet to stir. I have made my fire and seen to the horses. They are all dead. Today I have much to do here, and I keep waiting till the sun is up high, for there may be places where I must go, where that sunlight, though snow and mist obscure it, will be to me a safety. I will strengthen me with breakfast, then I will go to my terrible work. Madame Mina still sleeps, and God be thanked, she is calm in her sleep. We'll never learn the full connection between her and these vampire women. We never will. They clearly know her. They know what she is. Enough to call her a sister. Were they even drawn to her? Is that how they know where these two are? In the snow? And if so, like Dracula, does she share a connection with them? We'll never know. Next we move to Jonathan Harker's journal for the 4th of November in the evening. The accident to the launch has been a terrible thing for us. Only for it we should have overtaken the boat long ago, and by now my dear Mina would have been free. I fear to think of her off in the wolds near that horrid place. We have got horses, and we follow on the track. I note this whilst Godalming is getting ready. We have our arms. Mrs. Gowning must look out if they mean to fight. Oh, if only Morris and Seward were with us. We must only hope, for I write no more. If I write no more, goodbye, Mina. God bless you and keep you. All of them, in their various records, are assuming that they are going to die. And then we have Dr. Seward's diary. So it was a very short entry. We're getting more staccato bursts here. We have Dr. Seward's diary dated for the 5th of November. With the dawn, we saw the body of Sigani before us dashing away with the river, from the river with their leader wagon. They surrounded it in a cluster and hurried along as though beset. So the very whips of the enemy were upon their backs. They have Dracula. He has left the river. The snow is falling lightly, and there is a strange excitement in the air. It may be that our own excited feelings, but the depression is strange. Far off I hear the howling of wolves. The snow brings them down from the mountains, and there are dangers to all of us, and from all sides. The horses are nearly ready, and we are soon off. We shall ride to death of someone. God only knows who, or where, or what, or when, or how it may be. Then we move to another memorandum by Dr. Van Helsing for the 5th of November. I am at least sane. Thank God for that mercy at all events, though the proving of it be dreadful. When I left Madam Mina sleeping within the holy circle, I took my way to the castle. The blacksmith hammer which I took in the carriage from Veresti was useful. Though the doors were all open, I broke them off the rusty hinges, lest some ill intent or ill chance should close them, so that being entered I might not get out. Jonathan's bitter experience served me here. By memory of his diary, I found my way to the old chapel, for I knew that here my work lay. The air was oppressive. It seemed as if there was some sulphurous fume which at times made me dizzy. Either there has been a roaring in my ears, or I have heard afar off the howl of wolves. Then I bethought me of my dear Madam Mina, and I was in terrible plight. The dilemma had me between his horns. Her I had not dared to take to this place, but left safe from the vampire in that holy circle, and yet even there would be wolves, who obviously don't care about supernatural. I resolved me that my work lay here, and that as to the wolves we must submit if it were God's will. This is all cloaked in Victorian language, but it's Van Helsing making an incredibly stark choice. I have a choice now to stay. I'm not going to bring Mina into the Castle Dracula. So I have a choice to stay with her and protect her from the wolves, or to leave her and maybe the wolves will kill her, but I have a more important thing to do. I have vampires to exterminate. So did I choose for her. Had it been for myself, the choice had been easy. The maw of the wolf were better to rest in than the grave of the vampire. So I make my choice and go on with my work. I knew that there were at least 3 graves to find, graves that are inhabited. It's inhabited, you foreign loon. So I search, and I find one of them. She lay in her vampire sleep, so full of life and voluptuous beauty that I shudder as though I have come to do murder. I doubt not that in old times, when such things were, many a man who set forth to do such a task as mine found at the last his heart fail him, and then his nerve. So he delay and delay and delay, till mere beauty and the fascination of the wanton undead have hypnotized him, and he remain on and on till sunset come and the vampire sleep be over. Then the beautiful eyes of the fair woman open and look love, and the voluptuous mouth present to a kiss, and the man is weak. And there remain one more victim in the vampire fold, one more to swell the grim and grisly ranks of the undead. 2 things here to note that you could pass right over. Number 1, this is the first direct inference we have that female vampires can attack men. And number 2, this is the first inference we have that there are ranks to the undead. If you weren't paying close attention, you would swear that Van Helsing thinks that when he eliminates these 3 vampire wives, there'll only be 1 vampire left in the world. There is certain fascination, surely, when I am moved by the mere presence of such a one, even lying as she lay in the tomb, fettered with age and heavy with the dust of centuries, though there be that horrid odor, such as the lairs of the Count have had. Yes, I was moved. I, Van Helsing, with all my purpose and with my motive for hate. I was moved to a yearning for delay which seemed to paralyze my faculties and to clog my very soul. It may have been that the need of natural sleep and the strange oppression of the air were beginning to overcome me. Certainly it was that I was lapsing into sleep, the open-eyed sleep of one who yields to sweet fascination, when there came through the snow-stilled air a long, low wail, so full of woe and pity that it woke me like the sound of a clarion. For it was the voice of my dear Madam Mina that I heard. Then I braced myself again to my horrid task, and found by wrenching away the tomb tops one of the other sisters, the other one, the dark one. I dared not pause to look on her as I had on her sister, lest once more I should begin to be in thrall. But I go on searching until presently I find in a high great tomb, as if made of to one much beloved, that other fair sister, which, like Jonathan, I had seen to gather herself out of the atoms of the mist. She was so fair to look on, so radiantly beautiful, so exquisitely voluptuous, that's 3 voluptuous on 1 page, that the very instinct of a man in me, which called some of my sex to love, and to protect one of hers, made my head whirl with new emotion. But God be thanked, that soul wail of my dear Madam Mina had not died out of my ears, and before the spell could be wrought further upon me, I had nerved myself to my wild work. But this time I had searched all the tombs in the chapels, so far as I could tell, and as there had been only 3 of these undead phantoms around us in the night, I took it that there were no more of active undead existent. There was one great tomb more lordly than all the rest. Huge it was, and nobly proportioned. On it was but one word: Dracula. This, then, was the undead home of the king vampire, to whom so many more were due. Its emptiness bespoke eloquent to the make certain that of what I knew. Before I began to restore these women to their dead selves through my awful work, I laid in Dracula's tomb some of the wafer, and so banished him from it, undead, forever. Then began my terrible task, and I dreaded it. Had it been but one, it had been easy, comparative. But three, to begin twice more after I had been through a deed of horror, for if it was terrible to see sweet Miss Lucy, what would it not be with these strange ones who have survived through centuries, and who had been strengthened by the passing of the years, who would, if they could, have fought for their foul lives? Oh, my friend John, but it was a butcher's work. Had it not been nerved by the thoughts of the dead, and of the living over whom hung such a pall of fear, I could not have gone on. I tremble and tremble even yet, till all was over. God be thanked, my nerve did stand. Had I not seen the repose of the first face, and the gladness that stole over it ere its final dissolution came, as realization that the soul had been won, I could not have gone further with my butchery. In other words, he stakes and decapitates the first of these Dracula wives, and sees for a moment on her face, before she dissolves into dust, that she is at peace. And that's enough for him to know that he's doing the right thing. That's not just butchery. I could not have endured the hard screeching as the stake drove home, the plunging and writhing form, the lips of bloody foam. I should have fled in terror and left my work undone. But it is over. And the poor souls, I can pity them now and weep as I think of them placid, each in her full sleep of death, for a short moment ere fating. For, friend John, hardly had my knife severed the head of each before the whole body began to melt away and crumble into its native dust, as though the death that should have come centuries agone had at last assert himself and lay at once aloud and say, I am here. Before I left the castle, I so fixed its entrances that nevermore can the Count enter there undead. When I stepped into the circle where Madame Mina slept, she woke from her sleep, and seeing me, cried out in pain that I had endured so much. Come, she said, come away from this awful place. Let us go to meet my husband, who is, I know, coming toward us. She was looking thin and pale and weak, but her eyes were pure and glowed with fervor. I was glad to see her paleness and her illness, for my mind was full of the fresh horror of that ruddy, vampiric sleep. They, too, are swollen like ticks when they're in their little tombs, which makes you wonder who they're fed on. Nameless peasants. Children. And so, with this trust and hope, and yet full of fear, we go eastward to meet our friends, and him, whom Madame Mina tell me that she know are coming to meet us. Then we moved to Madame Mina's own journal, for the 6th of November. It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I know Jonathan was coming. We did not go fast, though the way was steeply downhill, for we had to take heavy rugs and wraps with us. We dared not face the possibility of being left without warmth in the cold and the snow. We had to take some of our provisions, too, for we were in perfect desolation, and so far as we could see through the snowfall, there was not even a sign of habitation. When we had gone but a mile, I was tired with the heavy walking, and sat down to rest. Then we looked back and saw where the clear line of Dracula's castle cut the sky, for we were so deep under the hill whereon it sat that the angle of perspective of the Carpathian Mountains was far below it. We saw it in all its grandeur, perched 1,000 feet on a summit of sheer precipice, with seemingly great gap between it and the steep and adjacent mountain to any side. There was something wild and uncanny about the place. We could hear the distant howling of wolves. They were far off, but the sound, even though coming muffled through the deadening snowfall, was full of terror. I knew from the way Dr. Van Helsing was searching about it that he was trying to seek some strategic point where we'd be less exposed in case of attack. The rough roadway still led downward. We could trace it through the drifted snow. In a little, the professor signaled to me, so I got up and joined him. He had found a wonderful spot, a sort of natural hollow in a rock, with an entrance like a doorway between two boulders. He took me by the hand and drew me in. See, he said, here you will be in shelter, and if the wolves do come, I can meet them one by one. He brought in our furs and made a snug nest for me, and got out some provisions and forced them upon me. But I could not eat. To even try to do so was repulsive to me, and much as I would have liked to please him, I could not bring myself to attempt. He looked very sad, but did not reproach me. Taking his field glasses from the case, he stood up on the rock and began to search the horizon. Suddenly he called out, "Look, Madame Mina, look!" I sprang and stood up beside him on the rock, and he handed me the glasses and pointed. The snow was now falling more heavily and swirled about fiercely, for a high wind was beginning to blow. However, there were times when there were pauses between the snow flurries, and I could see a long way round. From the height where we were, it was possible to see a great distance and far off, beyond the white waste of snow. I could see the river lying like a black ribbon in kinks and curls as it wound its way. Straight in front of us, and not far off, in fact, so near that I wondered that we hadn't noticed it before, came a group of mounted men hurrying along. In the midst of them was a cart, a long leader wagon which swept from side to side like a dog's tail wagging, with each stern inequality of the road. Outlined against the snow as they were, I could see from the man's clothing that they were the peasants or gypsies of some kind. On the cart was a great square chest. My heart leaped as I saw it, for I felt that the end was coming. The evening was now drawing close, and as well knew that at sunset that thing, which was still then imprisoned there, would take new freedom and could in any of many forms elude all pursuit. In fear, I turned to the professor. To my consternation, however, he was not there. An instant later, I saw him below me. Round the rock he had drawn a circle, such as we had found shelter in last night. When he completed it, he stood beside me again, saying, "At least you shall be safe here from him." He took the glasses from me, and at the next lull in the snow swept the whole space below us. "See," he said, "they come quickly. They are flogging the horses and galloping as hard as they can." He paused and went on in a hollow voice, "They are racing for the sunset. We may be too late. God's will be done." Down came another blinding rush of driving snow, and the whole landscape was blotted out. It soon passed, however, and once more his glasses were fixed on the plain. Then came a sudden cry. "Look! Look! Look! See, 2 horsemen follow fast, coming up from the south. It must be Quincy and John. Take the glass. Look before the snow blots it all out." I took it and looked. The 2 men might be Dr. Seward and Mr. Morris. I knew at all events that neither of them was Jonathan. At the same time, I knew that Jonathan was not far off. Looking round, I saw on the north side of the coming party 2 other men, riding at breakneck speed. One of them I knew was Jonathan, and the other I took, of course, to be Lord Godalming. Isn't this incredible? Sorry to interrupt, but isn't this incredible? The cart with Dracula's last earthbox racing against the sunset, and 2 groups of riders coming in to catch them at the last minute from 2 different angles. Oh, they, too, were pursuing the party with the cart. When I told the professor, he shouted in glee like a schoolboy, and after looking intently till the snowfall made its sight impossible, he laid his Winchester rifle ready for use against the boulder at the opening of our shelter. "They are all converging," he said. "When the time comes, we shall have the gypsies on all sides." I got out my revolver, ready to hand, for whilst we were speaking, the howling of the wolves grew closer and louder. When the snowstorm abated a moment, we looked again. It was strange to see the snow falling in such heavy flakes close to us, and beyond the sun shining more and more brightly as it sank down toward the far mountain tops. Sweeping the glass all around, I could see here and there dots, moving singly and in 2s and 3s and larger numbers. The wolves were gathering for their prey. Every instant seemed to be an age while we waited. The wind came now in fierce bursts, and the snow was driven with a fury as it swept us in its circling eddies. At times we could not see an arm's length before us, but at others the hollow-sounding wind swept us by and seemed to clear the airspace round us so that we could see far off. We had of late been so accustomed to watch for sunrise and sunset that we knew with fair accuracy when it would be, and we knew that before long the sun would set. It was hard to believe that by our watches it was less than an hour that we waited in that rocky shelter before the various bodies began to converge close upon us. The wind came now with fiercer and more bitter sweeps, and more steadily from the north. It seemingly had driven the snow clouds from us, for, with only occasional bursts, the snow fell. We could distinguish clearly the individuals of each party, the pursuers and the pursued. Strangely enough, those pursued did not seem to realize, or at least to care, that they were being pursued. They seemed, however, to hasten with redoubled speed as the sun dropped lower and lower to the mountain tops. Closer and closer they drew. The professor and I crouched down behind our rock and held our weapons ready. I could see that he was determined that they should not pass. "You shall not pass." One and all were quite unaware of our presence. All at once 2 voices shouted out to halt. One was my Jonathan's, raised in a high key of passion, and the other Mr. Morris's strong, resolute tone of quiet command. The gypsies may not have known the language, but there was no mistaking the tone. In whatever the words were spoken. Instinctively they reined in, and at the last instant Lord Godalming and Jonathan rushed up at one side and Dr. Seward and Mr. Morris on the other. The leader of the gypsies, a splendid-looking fellow who sat his horse like a centaur, waved them back, and in a fierce voice gave to his companions some word to proceed. They lashed the horses and sprang forward, but the 4 men raised their Winchester rifles and in an unmistakable way commanded them to stop. At the same moment, Dr. Van Helsing and I rose behind the rock and pointed our weapons at them. Seeing that they were surrounded, the men tightened their reins and drew up. The leader turned to them and gave a word at which every man of the gypsy party drew which weapon he carried, knife or pistol, and held himself in readiness to attack. Issue was joined in an instant. The leader, with a quick movement of his rein, threw his horse out in front, and pointing first to the sun, now close down to the hilltops, and then to the castle, said something which I did not understand. For answer, all 4 men of our party threw themselves from their horses and dashed forward towards the cart. I should have felt terrible fear in seeing Jonathan in such danger, but that the ardor of battle must have been upon me as well as the rest of them. Good for you, Mina. Seeing the quick movement of our parties, the leaders of the gypsies gave a command. His men instantly formed round the cart in a sort of undisciplined endeavor, each one shouldering and pushing the other in his eagerness to carry out the order. They are deathlessly loyal to Dracula. You have to think that at some point he's promised them immortality. They're all Renfields, only better armed. In the midst of this, I could see that Jonathan on the one side of the ring of men and Quincy on the other were forcing a way to the cart. It was evident that they were bent on finishing their task before the sun should set. Nothing seemed to stop them or even hinder them. Neither the leveled weapons or the flashing knives of the gypsies in front or the howling of the wolves behind appeared to even attract their attention. Jonathan's impetuosity and the manifest singleness of his purpose seemed to overawe those in front of him. Instinctively they cowered aside and let him pass. In an instant he had jumped upon the cart and, with a strength which seemed incredible, raised the great box and flung it over the wheel to the ground. In the meantime, Mr. Morris had to use the force to pass through his side of the ring of Zizgani. All the time I had been breathlessly watching Jonathan, I had, with the tail of my eye, seen him pressing desperately forward, and had seen the knives of the gypsies flash as he won a way through them, and they cut at him. He had parried with his great Bowie knife, and at first I thought that he too had come through in safety, but as he sprang beside Jonathan, who had by now jumped from the cart, I could see that with his left hand he was clutching at his side, and that blood was spurting through his fingers. He did not delay, notwithstanding this, for as Jonathan, with desperate energy, attacked at one end of the chest, attempting to prise off the lid with his great kukri knife, he attacked the other frantically with his Bowie knife. Under the effort of both men, the lid began to yield, and the nails drew back with a quick screeching sound, and the top of the box was thrown back. By this time the gypsies, seeing themselves covered by the Winchesters and at the mercy of Lord Godalming and Dr. Seward, had given in and made no further resistance. The sun was almost down on the mountain tops, and the shadow of the whole group fell long on the snow. I saw the Count lying within the box upon the earth, some of which, with the rude falling from the cart, had scattered over him. He was deathly pale, just a waxen image, and the red eyes glared with horrible vindictive look, which I knew too well. In a minute he would be free. As I looked, the eyes saw the sinking sun, and a look of hate in them turned to triumph. But on the instant came the sweep and flash of Jonathan's great knife. I shrieked as I saw it shear through the throat, whilst at the same moment Mr. Morris's Bowie knife plunged into the heart. It was like a miracle, but before our eyes, in almost the drawing of a breath, the whole body crumbled into dust and passed from our sight. I should be glad as long as I live that even in that moment of final dissolution there was in the face a look of peace, such as I never could have imagined might have rested there. So even Dracula is happy to be released from the curse of being undead. The castle of Dracula now stood out against the red sky, and every stone of its broken battlements was articulated against the light of the setting sun. The gypsies, taking us as in some way the cause of an extraordinary disappearance of the dead man, turned without a word and rode away as if for their lives. Those who were unmounted jumped upon the leader wagon and shouted to the horsemen not to desert them. The wolves, which had withdrawn to a safe distance, followed in their wake, leaving us alone. Mr. Morris, who had sunk to the ground, leaned on his elbow, holding his hand pressed to his side. The blood still gushed through his fingers. I flew to him, for the holy circle did not now keep me back. So did the 2 doctors. Jonathan knelt behind him, with the wounded man laid back on his head on his shoulder. With a sigh, he took, with a feeble effort, my hand in that of his own, which was unstained. He must have seen the anguish in my heart in my face, for he smiled at me and said, "I am only too happy to have been of any service. Oh, God," he cried suddenly, struggling up to sitting posture and pointing to me, "it was worth this to die. Look, look." The sun was now right down upon the mountain top, and the red gleams fell upon my face so that it was bathed in rosy light. With one impulse, the men sank on their knees, and deep in earnest, amen broke from all their eyes, followed the pointing of his fingers. The dying man spoke. Now God be thanked that all has not been in vain. See, the snow is not more stainless than her forehead. The curse has passed away. And to our bitter grief, with a smile and in silence, he died, a gallant gentleman. So the mark has gone away. Dracula is dead. Mina is free. And then we have a note. 7 years ago, we all went through the flames, and the happiness of some of us since then is, we think, well worth the pain we endured. It is an added joy to Mina and to me that our boy's birthday is the same day as that on which Quincy Morris died. His mother holds, I know, the secret belief that some of our brave friend's spirit passed into him. His bundle of names links all our little band of men together, but we call him Quincy. In the summer of this year, we made a journey to Transylvania and went over the old ground which was and is to us so full of vivid and terrible memories. It was almost impossible to believe that the things which we had seen with our own eyes and heard with our own ears were living truths. Every trace of all that had been was blotted out. The castle stood as before, reared high above a waste of desolation. When we got home, we got to talking of the old time, which we could all look back on without despair, for Godalming and Seward are both happily married. I took the papers from the safe where they have been ever since our return so long ago. We were struck by the fact that in all this mass of material of which the record is composed, there is hardly one authentic document. Nothing but a mass of typewriting, except the later notebooks of Mina and Seward and myself, and Van Helsing's memorandum. We can hardly ask anyone, even did we wish to do so, to accept these as proof of so wild a story. Van Helsing summed it all up when he said, with our boy on his knee, "We want no proofs. We ask none to believe us. This boy will some day know what a brave and gallant woman his mother is. Already he knows her sweetness and loving care. Later on he will understand how some men so loved her that they did so much for her sake." Signed, Jonathan Harker. And that is the end of the book. 7 years passes after that thrilling chase scene at the end. 7 years pass. They even go back as a tourist group. They go back to Transylvania. They go back to Castle Dracula. You think it would be the last place on earth they'd ever go. But they do, all together. And someone marries Dr. Seward. Kind of a surprise right there. So there you go. That is the end of Dracula. An absolute joy to read to you. I think it's only fair that I give this particular hardcover Penguin volume a place in the little book room to commemorate our reading adventure. So I will wrap this up. That is the end of Dracula. And we will read something else together. Don't you worry. Thank you, BookTube.